to Julius. Puts up a three. And a goal!
Bearcat Blitz. How are we doing, everyone? Thank you for tuning in to the first show this week, a double quad one game week for the Bearcats. And really, it's a quad one game month stretch coming up for Cincinnati, a huge 5-game run opportunity for Wes Miller's squad to show and prove that they are one of the contenders, not only in this league, but a contender potentially in the NCAA tournament if they can eventually get there. Following a 2-0 week in 2 quad 2 opportunities, they get the job done against Colorado and Arizona State. We will discuss all of that, plus the big stretch coming up, starting with Texas Tech, the number 15 team in the net rankings on the board next at home on Tuesday nights. But of course, the Bearcats got it done against Arizona State, 67-60. We will discuss that victory on today's show, discuss the overall ins and outs of the upcoming matchup against Texas Tech. There's one kind of news and note to get to about football, as things have been very quiet on that front with the team getting their ducks in a row ahead of winter workouts firing up in full force here over the next couple of weeks, if not now, with the team fully back on campus following the winter break session. He's Neil Meyer. I'm Russ Heltman, Cincinnati Bearcats on SI. You can find my work there. You can find Neil's work at Rivals Cincinnati site, thefrontofficenews.com. And we are, of course, brought to you by Bet Online, which continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, to NHL and UFC. Bet Online is the number one sports betting source for the new year. From touchdowns to three-pointers and hat tricks, Bet Online has you covered on every game, every play, and every win. Bet Online, the game starts here. Get to a quick break, hear from our awesome sponsors, then we'll dive into a recap of Arizona State and more after these messages. Neil, Cincinnati has paired together consecutive wins in the Big 12 for the first time as a conference member of the basketball ranks. 67-60 win over Arizona State. I'll leave the floor to you, my man.
Yeah, so a lot to kind of unpack in this one too, Russ. But before we talk the positives for Cincinnati, let's talk about arguably the best player on the court in this matchup in freshman phenom, freshly 17-year-olds, Jaden Quaintance. And Russ, you and I talked about what this kid brings to the table, the upside he has. And man, Russ, at 17 years old, he played like a NBA lottery pick on Saturday. 15 points, 14 rebounds, 5 blocks. I mean, the dude was just all over the place. And I mean, if you're watching his game on Saturday, I don't think anybody in that stands could really believe that he had just turned 17 years old. So on top of that, that's the biggest thing to take away from that, because Cincinnati not only had to deal with him this year, they're going to have to face him next year because he's not even draft eligible. So Jaden Quaintance, a problem for college basketball because of how good he is and how talented. He's going to be there 2 years, unlike your previous one and done. So overall, Jaden Quaintance was fantastic on Saturday. But for Cincinnati on the other hand, Russ, let's talk about it. Simas Lukosius looked to find his groove again. Leads the team
in the first half. He did, yeah.
Looks to find his groove a little bit there. It was good to see that. Led the team in points, 10 points, I believe, in this one. Well, Dylan Mitchell had 14. I thought he was great in this one. But really what stood out to me about Dylan Mitchell on Saturday was, man, his willingness and preparation and determination. Like, Russ, he sees the court different than anybody else because he just takes away passing lanes. And that was the difference maker in this one, because there was 3 or 4 different times where he had deflected a pass and it turned into a transition bucket, which, Russ, that's something Cincinnati hasn't seen since Big 12 play. I mean, season high 25 fast break points. That was huge difference in this one. But on top of it, CJ Frederick looks to find his role, and it played a big role in Saturday's victory. Knocked down 2
threes for the first time since December 23rd, I think, or 22nd of 2023.
Yeah, he knocked down 2 big threes, and both of them, Russ, were in moments where Cincinnati is needing a bucket desperately. They go through the 8-minute scoring drought, and Russ, I mean, in that 8 minutes, it felt like the lid that Cincinnati had just taken off the rim just instantly got placed right back on because their offense was stagnant as can be. And Arizona State was down 12, came back in this game. Cincinnati went 10 of 12 from the line down the last 10 minutes, so that's a positive thing. But overall, CJ Frederick's impact, Russ, is going to be huge for this team looming forward, especially with the status of Connor Hickman still to be kind of determined. I mean, didn't see him again on Saturday, was in a walking boot. Sounds like it's going to be an out indefinitely situation. So CJ Frederick's going to step up and potentially play a huge role in this game alongside Josh Reed. I thought those two guys gave great minutes. But on top of it, Russ, 4 people in double figures. You still don't like where the Cincinnati stood on the rebounding battle. When you lose 42-33 on the glass versus a team like Arizona State, and a game, Russ, you and I talked about, this could be a game where Cincinnati opens things up in that margin. To see them lose by that much on that kind of side of things is definitely worrisome. But overall, there's still plenty of positives to take away from Saturday's victory.
Dillon Mitchell was the standout performer in this game, and he is, I think, head and shoulders the most important, most valuable, best, whatever mantra you want to stick with Dillon Mitchell. UC would be in shambles right now without Mitchell, especially he is the thing that stirs the entire defensive drink, and man, did it stir again, Neil. What do we tell the people? Keep smashing those under point totals if they keep putting them above 130 points for the full game. Somehow, some way, bettors were taking this total all the way up to 137.5. I didn't understand it. Couldn't fathom it at all. And they couldn't even come within 10 points of hitting that total in this one. 60 points allowed by the Cincinnati defense. They were stellar. Again, so stellar. Outside of a first 5-6 minute stretch in the opening second half portion when Arizona State hit multiple threes, they were, again, the best defense on the outside in the entire nation. 6 of 22 from outside at Arizona State went just 27%. UC was a little worse, 5 of 22, but they didn't turn the ball over. They didn't make a lot of bad decisions with the basketball, and they hit their free throws. If UC, Neil, can hit 12 to 15 free throws a game the rest of the year, keep the turnovers under 10, and find a way, like you mentioned, to get out and run, push the tempo for a team that is awful in the half court. They have no offense. It does not exist in the half court for this UC team, but they can deadly kill you in the half or in the court running portion of things. 25-2 fast break point advantage. And it's going to be very important against the team in Texas Tech that does not like to let teams run and not like to push the tempo. We'll get to that in the back half of the show, but huge performance by Dillon Mitchell. I love what I saw out of him. He went 2 for 3 from the free throw line, 6 of 10 from the field, 14 points, 3 rebounds, was all over the floor, had a couple of blocks as well, 2 blocks, 3 steals. Neil, that's just filling up the box score. It was one of his best games as a Bearcat. Dillon Mitchell willed this victory on both ends and had some nice complimentary performances from Dan Skillings, who got to the line 8 times, tied his career high with 8 free throw attempts, talked about how he was able to use his pump fake and get the Arizona State defenders a couple times, had half of the team's free throw attempts and hit 6 of them. That was massive.
And then Jizzle James as well. Jizzle James as well, bounced back 12 points, essentially played with the flu from what it sounds like, Russ. I mean, this Wes Miller said he was getting an IV an hour before the game. So to see him kind of have the performance he did, knowing that he was as sick as what Wes Miller
and had some limited minutes too. That was his second or third lowest minute total of the season, obviously because of the sickness. We're going to cut Jizzle some slack. Eventually, he's got to hit some threes. Like, he has got to find that jump shot. It's got to be found eventually for UC to hit their ceiling. But he moves on, and he performed admirably with that illness. Still 0 for 4 from deep. You need to see some more impact from your top guard in terms of being able to hit some outside shots. Dan Skillings went 0 for 3, and Simas Lukosius got off the schneid a bit, 2 for 5. But, yeah, there is just not enough shooting impact from this offense right now. But despite that, they're getting out and running a little bit more. They're turning some of these fast break opportunities into points. They're getting to the free throw line a little bit more aggressively, and those things are making up for their just poor shooting so far in Big 12 play. It's been pretty bad. Overall, you see in Big 12 play, Neil is shooting, I believe, 27% from the three-point line and 38% from the floor. 2-4 results so far in those 6 games. Offense has to get a little better, especially as we move to this preview of Texas Tech, a Texas Tech team that is arguably, Neil, the best team that UC's played so far this year. They're right up there with Baylor. I'd say Kansas has a little bit higher hierarchy than Texas Tech, but Texas Tech can make a case to be just as good as Kansas as well. They're right there among the top 20, top 25 teams in the nation, especially offensively, where they are bringing one of the better offenses in the country to the table. 10th best offensive rating on KenPom out of Texas Tech. Overall, though, Neil, as we tie up the bow on the 67-60 win over Arizona State, just attack some of the easier things if you're Cincinnati, especially offensively. The defense is good to go. The defense is one of the best in the country. It's consistently able to let Cincinnati dictate the pace and the style and the overall trajectory of these games. Neil, there hasn't been a winning score in UC 6 games so far above 72 points, which is what they allowed to Arizona in the loss a couple of weeks ago. So to me, that is entrenched. That is solid. Keep leaning on that defense and those defensive tendencies. And then on offense, don't try to make a square peg fit into a round hole anymore. Quit trying so hard with the half-court offense. If you have to take a quote-unquote bad shot in transition as opposed to a good shot in the half-court, I'd rather see them take the bad shot because, Neil, the good shots aren't going in at all at a consistent enough rate. And we've seen and we can see from the statistical benchmarks of the height and weight of the players on the roster and the overall impact on the floor, when this team runs, when this team gets out in transition, and when they avoid the half-court malaise, they can be a mediocre to good offense. But when they don't do that, it's just flat out bad.
Yeah, most certainly, Russ. Obviously, you want to see them push the tempo a little bit more. That's something that they have been very open about trying to do.
And would they have 16 fast break points against Colorado? So 41 in the past 2 games. That's about 20 points on average per game fast break wise is what this team should be gunning for.
Yeah, no, most certainly. And I think it's kind of safe to say that when Cincinnati pushes the tempo, not many teams are going to keep up with them. I mean, Russ, this game opened up Saturday in that moment when Day Thomas checked in right away and immediately pushed the tempo.
Right, with that depth, the 9 to 10 man rotation, Neil, good point. Day Thomas, he's a guy that can instantly come in with full, fresh legs and start pushing that tempo.
Exactly, and everybody who knows Day Thomas or who has covered him like we have extensively, Russ, we know he's going to push the tempo and he wants to get out and run. He wants to talk a little bit of trash. He wants to kind of make things intense at times. So he's going to look to push the tempo, which is what you want for Cincinnati right now, especially with how things have gone right now. The half-court offense just isn't where Cincinnati needs it to be at this point in the season. Obviously, teams are sitting on the pick-and-roll kind of offense. That's what Cincinnati is really known to run, but they got to find ways to get downhill and attack. I mean, I like the aggression that Simas Lukosius has played with recently, Dylan Mitchell as well, but they have to find ways to get the ball inside and kind of go from there. Now, Wes Miller even mentioned that they feel like they're not too far off from Aziz Bandego reaching a new level on the offensive side of things. So it's going to be interesting to see where that kind of plays a factor into it. Now, will we see them kind of unlock something there for him in the post a little bit more? We don't really know, but it's going to be interesting hearing those comments. And if Cincinnati is able to
I don't know about you, but I don't ever want to see any Bearcat player take a hook shot the rest of the season. I don't want to see one more hook shot the rest of the season. I don't want to see it. I think they've made maybe 1 or 2 in the past month that I've seen. It's like 2 for 20 essentially at this point. It's almost impossible for them to make one of those.
No, yeah, most certainly. You got to take your back to the hole and kind of pin those guys down to really
take a 3 instead of the hook shot. Just chuck a 3 up instead of the.
You either got to get to the rack or you got to settle for a mid-range jumper or a 3. Like you got to knock something down, but the hook shot just isn't there, Russ. I like that mention because they are really struggling in that kind of aspect as well. So
it's like all you can do is just laugh when you see one go up. It's like another hook shot. That's not going in.
But hopefully with this stretch of games coming up, we are able to see that kind of interior offense kind of take that next step, especially here. What, Russ? We're quickly approaching what? This is going to be game 7 of conference play. So
Yep.
we're quickly approaching the halfway mark here. So Cincinnati's looking to find ways to get this offense going.
That they are. A Cincinnati team that sits at 2-4 in conference play. Probably needs to go on a little run here. 4-1, 3-2 at least over the next 5 games. All 5 quad 1 matchups. And we'll get to this upcoming stretch, and a stretch and scenario where Wes Miller teams have historically failed in his tenure, trying to flip those scripts in the next couple weeks' time. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Eltman. Take a quick break here and get to the Texas Tech preview on the other side of this episode on Bearcat Blitz. Neil, this is an interesting, intriguing, all the ends kind of matchup against Texas Tech on Tuesday night. When you think about a Red Raider team that is the latest quad 1 matchup for Cincinnati. Let's go through those quad 1 matchups so far this year, Neil. Villanova, 68-60 loss. Kansas State, 70-67 loss. Arizona, 72-67 loss. Baylor, 68-48 loss. And Kansas, 54-40 loss. This 0-4 run, Neil, drops Wes Miller's all-time record in these scenario games to 6-29 overall. Can Cincinnati, after going, I believe, 4-11 in these games last season, they had 4 quad 1 wins in 2023, 2024, can they find a way to not only continue these winning ways, but continue them against top-tier teams in the conference? 4-11 quad 1 games in 2023-24. Neil, they need to get probably 6-7 overall quad 1 wins, maybe 8 down the stretch of this campaign, given how poorly the first 4 games went, to get into the overall NCAA tournament field. It's not going to be easy, but it was never going to be easy for the Big 12. This stretch coming up is the moment where their season is largely going to be defined.
Yeah, no, most certainly, Russ, because, I mean, you look down at Cincinnati's upcoming schedule, we're talking about a very good Texas Tech team who's impressed a lot of people. I believe 13-4 on the season. So overall, this is a really good Texas Tech squad, and led by Jacob Toppin, who we'll talk a little bit more about. But Russ, you look down at this schedule, right? The upcoming week and a half for Cincinnati: Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, and a surging West Virginia team who has single-handedly shocked the world this year, beating number 1 Kansas and now beating number 2 Iowa State. Cincinnati is going to have to really kind of find their momentum and lock in. Obviously, you kind of have the momentum in your favor starting the 2 games versus Colorado and Arizona State, but this one versus Texas Tech is a big one for Wes Miller on Tuesday night. And on top of it, it builds momentum heading into a trip out to Utah and then potentially have another quad 1 matchup at home versus West Virginia. This is a must-win game for Wes Miller and the Bearcats on Tuesday night.
I kind of have to agree with you full-heartedly, Neil, because it becomes must-win when you zoom out and look at how difficult these other quad 1 opportunities are, especially the quad 1 opportunities that you have left at home. There are not many left available to you, and when you go on the road, it's obviously much more difficult to win. You want to go 3-2 over these next 5 games, and you'd prefer one of those 3 wins to be over West Virginia or Texas Tech. You're not going to make a lot of hay in the NCAA tournament bubble trajectories if you only beat BYU, Utah, and UCF over the next 5 games and lose both of your top 30 net matchups against West Virginia and Texas Tech. And then you look the rest of the way.
That's even to say, too, about UCF. UCF has been surging as of lately, and that's always been a place that Cincinnati has struggled to play on the road. It's very hard to win down there in Orlando as well. So overall, it's not going to be an easy stretch, Russ, because BYU, everybody knows the kind of talent they have out there, too. Utah was probably arguably maybe one of the worst teams in the conference is starting to find their groove. Like, this next 4 or 5 game stretch, Russ, is going to be extremely extremely difficult for Cincinnati, and it's going to define their season, most certainly.
Right. And you look at the quad one home games left: Texas Tech, West Virginia, and then home against Baylor. And that's it. That's all you have left in terms of quad one opportunities left at home. 3. You really could use wins in all 3, if not 2 and 3 overall. And starting with a loss against Texas Tech, you have to win those games to get an at-large bid into the NCAA tournament. If in this scenario, you cannot lose those 3 quad one games. You can't lose 2 of them, and you can really, if you lose all 3, you're in a huge world of hurt, and you're having to beat Houston on the road in that scenario to get an at-large bid. You're having to beat either them or Iowa State on the road to pull off some kind of flipping miracle in your resume. Massive opportunity against Texas Tech that we will get to right now. In terms of Cincinnati, probably, Neil, I would imagine either being a 1.5 point to 2 point favorite or a 1.5 point to 2 point underdog in this game against a Red Raider team entering number 15 in the net, number 12 in KenPom, to Cincinnati's 39th ranking in the net, 40th number on KenPom as of this recording. 0-4 in quad one games, as I mentioned, but Cincinnati has a 52.7% chance to win this game against Texas Tech on ESPN's matchup predictor, a team in Tech that they are 2-0 against since the 1949-50 season. Neil, will Cincinnati continue the fast break regimen? It's not going to be easy against Texas Tech. They're 290th in adjusted tempo, 230th in possessions per game. To get enough offense, in my eyes, to get to the 65-point mark that I think will win this game, Cincinnati will have to run a little bit more than most Texas Tech opponents, and they're going to have to spam the only thing that Texas Tech's 35th ranked defense in adjusted efficiency does at a semi-mediocre level, which is defend the three-point line. They're 132nd nationally in overall three-point defense. When you think about them being 32.3% now allowed, that's actually 152nd nationally. So right in the middle of the pack nationally in three-point defense allowed. They allow a pretty decent amount of attempts as well. They're more willing to let teams shoot from the outside and live and die by the 3, and they limit two-point attempts at a big rate. They do a good job of limiting the efficiency on those attempts. Just 45.9% allowed on two-point shot attempts this season. That's 42nd nationally. So, Neil, this is kind of similar scenario to what the Kansas Jayhawks brought to the table a couple of weeks ago. Can Cincinnati hit some shots at home, hit some of these open shots? They've had open threes. They've had those opportunities. Can they hit them? That's what I'm looking for on the offensive side of the ball. What about you?
Yeah, man, I'm right there with you. Can Cincinnati really push the tempo and be able to knock down some threes in this one? That's going to be the difference maker. If Cincinnati comes out and they start a first half like they did versus Kansas State, where you go 5 of 10 from behind the arc in the first half, that's what you're looking for, right? You want to find your offense early. But with how Texas Tech has been playing this year, Russ, it's going to be safe to say that they're going to come into fifth third for arguably the first time, right? Because Texas Tech didn't come here last year. So
no, they went to Tech.
Yep, they're going to come in here for the first time in quite some time and try to get a home or try to get a big road win. So they're going to come out and they're going to play very tough, very intense right off the rip. And I think everybody knows that. But Cincinnati has to find a way to be aggressive early and look to get that offense going. Now, whether that's Jizzle James, Seamus Lukosius, whoever it might be, the key to this one is you're going to have to come out and be aggressive early. And Dylan Mitchell even emphasized it in recent games that if you don't come out with that intensity early, it's going to be hard to find your way back and find some momentum, especially in the Big 12.
Free throws as well, Neil. Can you take advantage of a kind of like gamey, grabby Texas Tech team? They're 309th. Texas Tech is 307th nationally with 15.4 fouls committed per game. Attack the rim when you have those opportunities to get downhill. You might not make those 2-point attempts, but you can still turn those 2-point tries, those 2-point drives into free throws. Seek out that contact, try to get to the foul line, and continue the stretch where UC's made 28 free throws over their past 2 games. That's a massive gauge for this one, as is the 3-point line, like I mentioned. Whoever hits more threes in this one, likely going to win the basketball game, given Texas Tech on the other side, Neil, as we flip to the defensive side of the ball for Cincinnati and the offensive side for Texas Tech, 38%, almost 40%, 38.9% from deep this season are the Texas Tech Red Raiders. That's 16th nationally. They have arguably, Neil, we were talking about Seamus Lukosius being one of the best shooters in the country. Well, that has completely fallen off the wayside, and a guy who has not fallen off the wayside is Chance McMillan. The guard is filling it up as a shooter, 14.9 points, 4.4 rebounds, shooting 47% from deep. Can Cincinnati slow him down in the half court? Can they slow down this offense from Texas Tech that is extremely efficient, moves the ball very, very well? They're top 20 nationally in assists per game with over 17 per outing. That's led by top assist man in the Big 12, Elijah Hawkins, a 5'11" guard, averaging 9.1 points, 6.4 assists. He feeds McMillan on a lot of the 6'2" guards' best shot opportunities. 67.5% effective field goal rate by Chance McMillan. That's number one in the Big 12. He is the biggest offensive hub to stop on the Texas Tech Raiders up top, Neil. That's just up top. Then you got your guy that you mentioned before, JT Toppin, down low, 6'9" forward, one of the most efficient players in the Big 12, averaging 16.6 points, 9.2 rebounds, and is going to be an issue for Cincinnati driving down the lane on their end of the floor. Getting back to the offensive side, 2.3 combined blocks and steals for JT Toppin this season. Can Cincinnati slow down this offense enough to get this into a rock fight and get this to the mid-60s where they can will a victory in front of that home crowd? I think they can. The defense has shown me enough to say I think they can win another rock fight here. They're only allowing 10.4 assists per game. That's beautiful to match up with this great passing offense from the Red Raiders. 20th nationally UC is in assists per game allowed. And as we mentioned, Neil, no game in the Big 12 for Cincinnati this season has had a winning score above 72 points. I think that continues here. Give me the Bearcats, 65-64 in another tight one at home.
Yeah, no, most certainly. JT Toppin's going to be a handful on Tuesday night, Russ. I mean, he leads the team in scoring, 16 points, 9 rebounds as well. So this is a guy who is very efficient with the ball in his hands, especially in the front court, 55% field goal shooter. Between him,
he really can do everything besides pass and shoot the three.
Correct. And between guys like Toppin and Chance McMillan, they're going to have their hands full. Those are two very talented players. And you also forget Darren Williams as well. So, I mean, overall, they have a plethora of guys who can single-handedly make you pay. Because between the three of those guys right there, Russ, JT Toppin, Darren Williams, and Chance McMillan, those are three guys averaging 15 or more points. So right there, that's going to be where majority of your offense comes. So this is going to be maybe the most challenging offense that Cincinnati has faced all season outside of Kansas, to say the least. So this is a huge matchup there, but Cincinnati did well versus Texas Tech last year, but it's going to be interesting to see how do they match up versus the Red Raiders on Tuesday night.
What do you got, Neil?
Oh, you say 65-64. It's going to be a close game. I'm going to go 68-63 in favor of the Bearcats.
All right. A little cushion right there. We'll see if they can get it done. Full show for everybody. A lot of fun on the hoops side of things. Maybe some potential football news this week, football media availability. We'll see. We will see, as hasn't been much news lately. Waiting for the kind of wrap up media opportunities ahead of the full dive into 2025 for the Cincinnati football program. A solid transfer portal haul and a solid week on the Bearcats basketball front. 2-0 back-to-back wins for the first time in conference play as a Big 12 member. Can they make it 3 in a row? We will be back to discuss it all and touch on the upcoming game against BYU this Saturday night on the next Bearcat Blitz. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Elvin. Catch you all on Thursday, everybody. This has been Bearcat Blitz presented by Bet Online.
This is the second. 15 seconds left. Shot clock off. 4-point game. DeJulius puts up a three.